The first thing I did after being reborn was down 5 sleeping pills and sleep for 2 straight days. In my last life, I'd gone out to buy groceries, only to run right into my husband Leo, coming out of a hotel with his arm around a female co-worker. The next day, Leo was reported to his company and lost his job. In his despair, he left a suicide note and killed himself. My mother-in-law and my son both decided I was the one who had murdered him. Together, they locked me in the old family warehouse. I held on for 5 agonizing days before dying of extreme hunger and thirst. It was only then that I learned the truth. His mistress was the one who had reported him. She used me to do her dirty work and keep her own hands clean. After Leo's death, she successfully took over his position as general manager. At his funeral, she put on a show of grief, holding my mother-in-law's hand and saying that if it were her, she would never have reported him. She called me a classless, vindictive bitch who had torn their happy family apart. My mother-in-law, egged on by her, cursed my name all night. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the moment before I left to go grocery shopping. 1. My head was still spinning when my mother-in-law shook me awake. As soon as I saw who was standing in front of me, I shot up and dropped to my knees. Mom, I'm sorry. It wasn't me who hurt Leo, it wasn't me. I'm begging you, please let me out. My mother-in-law jumped back, startled. She took several steps away before snapping. Chloe, are you having a nightmare or something? Crying and screaming this early in the morning, shut your mouth. If you wake up Jason, you'll see what I do to you. Just as she finished, my son Jason walked in from the hallway. Mom, what are you doing? I was having a great dream. I was half asleep and all I could hear was you shouting in here. Are you trying to keep everyone from sleeping? Once I processed what they were saying, I frantically wiped away my tears and looked around. I realized I wasn't in the cold, filthy warehouse anymore, but in my own warm, familiar bedroom. The calendar on the nightstand clearly told me that it was 3 days before I was locked in that warehouse. I immediately knew I had been reborn to a time before my husband died. Seeing me silent, my mother-in-law assumed I'd calmed down. While cooing at her grandson to go back to sleep, she barked at me to hurry up and go buy groceries. After they both left, I grabbed my phone to check the time, confirming that I hadn't run into my husband's affair yet. In my past life, at my mother-in-law's insistence, I had changed my clothes and left the house. I was originally heading to the supermarket near our apartment, but I ran into a neighbor downstairs who told me a farmer's market a few bus stops away was having a huge sale. I decided to head there right away. As soon as I got off the bus, I saw my husband Leo, with his arm around Sarah, a woman from his company, as they walked out of a hotel. The 3 of us made eye contact. Without a word, Leo grabbed Sarah and pulled her back inside. I stood there for a while, the desire to shop completely gone. I went home with my basket empty. I didn't say a word about it to my mother-in-law. Back then, I was naive enough to think that Leo would come home and explain everything. Our son was already so grown up. If he was willing to change, I thought we could still make it work. I never expected that after waiting all night, the only news I would receive was of his suicide. The police found a cloth bag on the bridge where he jumped. Inside were his ID and a suicide note. In the note, Leo raged about how unfair it all was, pushing all the blame onto me. He said he'd made a small mistake, but it wasn't bad enough to get reported and lose his job. Now that the entire board of directors knew, his career at the company and in the entire industry was finished. Death was his only way out. My mother-in-law fainted on the spot when she read the note. My son rained punches and kicks down on me, screaming as he hit me. So what if Dad cheated on you? Why did you have to drive him to his death? You vicious woman. I don't have a mother like you. He then turned around, and with his grandmother's help, they tied me up and locked me in the warehouse at the old family house in the country. I screamed for help, but no one could hear me. After starving to death, my body was half eaten by rats. Only after I died did I learn the whole truth. It turned out Sarah had orchestrated the whole thing. She'd been after my husband's job for a while, and the affair was just her way of finding an opportunity to replace him. Not only did she anonymously report him and drive him to suicide, but she also put on a spectacular performance at his funeral, which incited my mother-in-law to desecrate my corpse. I clenched the phone in my hand and gritted my teeth. This time, I won't let a single one of them get away with it. 2. With my mind made up, I tossed my phone aside and started screaming. My mother-in-law and son rushed back in, woken up by the noise. But this time, I had a different story. Mom, Jason, I think the house isn't clean. I think there's a ghost. My words made my mother-in-law shudder. She tried to act calm as she scolded me. It's broad daylight. What ghost? Chloe, have you got nothing better to do? I told you to go grocery shopping. Why haven't you left yet? No. I'm scared to go out. I'm afraid there are ghosts outside too. Before she could react, I grabbed her hand. Mom, I really don't know what's wrong with me. Please help me. Help? How can I help? I'm an old woman. I don't know how to exorcise ghosts. Besides, you're standing here yelling about ghosts, and I haven't seen a single shadow. Are you just messing with me? Really? There are no ghosts. I pretended to be scared, looking from side to side. Maybe it was just a nightmare. I don't know what's been wrong with me these past few days. I can't sleep well, and I have no energy. My son spoke up. Grandma, do you think Mama's having a breakdown? Maybe you should go get the groceries. I'm worried she might hurt someone if she goes out. Fine, I'll go. If you ask me, your mom is just being lazy and doesn't want to go out, so she made up this ghost story to trick us. Seeing them about to leave, I quickly called out to my mother-in-law. Mom, I remember you have some sleeping pills. Can I have a couple? Maybe if I get a good night's sleep, I'll feel better. Annoyed with my antics, my mother-in-law grumbled as she tossed me a bottle of sleeping pills. I could feel there were plenty left in the bottle. Estimating how long I needed to be out, I poured out 5 pills and swallowed them with water. Before I drifted off, I propped up my phone on the nightstand, making sure it had a clear view of the whole bed. I plugged in the charging cable, lay down, and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up, I saw that 2 days had passed. The long sleep left my whole body numb. It took me a while to regain control of my limbs. I steadied myself against the wall and slowly made my way out of the bedroom, running right into my mother-in-law as I stepped out. Ouch! She cried out, clutching her head. When she saw it was me, she let out a sigh of relief. Chloe, you're finally awake. You're a grown woman. Don't you have any common sense? You take 1 or 2 of those sleeping pills at most, and you took 5. You slept for days, you nearly scared me to death. If you hadn't woken up by tomorrow, I was going to have Jason call an ambulance. I quickly bowed my head and apologized. Judging by her relaxed tone, it seemed my husband was still okay. But just as I had that thought, a phone started ringing frantically from inside the room. When I answered, a middle-aged man's voice came through the line. Hello, is this Leo's wife? Leo jumped from the Fulton River Bridge around noon today. He has been taken to the hospital. You should gather your other relatives and come over right away. I told my mother-in-law what the person on the phone had said. Her body swayed, and I had to grab her to keep her from falling. Suicide? Why would Leo kill himself? The police must have the wrong person. They must, right? Mom, don't panic yet. We won't know if it's true or not until we get to the hospital. Maybe it really was a wrong number. Yes, quickly. Let us go. We called for my son, who was resting at home, and the 3 of us immediately got into a cab heading for the hospital. In the taxi, my mother-in-law's hands wouldn't stop trembling. Even though it was freezing outside, her forehead was covered in sweat. As she dabbed her brow with a handkerchief, she kept muttering that it had to be a lie, that Leo would never kill himself. I verbally comforted her, but in my heart, I knew it had to be true. There was just one thing I didn't understand. In my last life, my husband was reported because I happened to catch him cheating, which gave Sarah the perfect opportunity to report him in my name and drag me down with him after his death. But in this life, I never even left the house. How did he still end up here? Could it be that Sarah found another reason to drive him to his death? 3. Lost in thought, the car had already arrived at County General Hospital. We paid the fare and rushed inside. After asking a nurse for directions to the emergency room, we had just turned a corner when we saw a doctor coming out of an operating room. shaking his head at a police officer. I'm sorry, we did everything we could. My mother-in-law's legs gave out, but she forced herself to stumble over to the officer, desperate to confirm who had died. When the officer said my husband's name, she couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed to the floor. My son and I got her into the nearest room and had a nurse start in for. It was a long time before she slowly came to. The moment she woke up, she started yelling, asking where my husband was, asking if the police had made a mistake and the dead man wasn't him. I sighed. Mom, Jason and I have already seen the body. It really is Leo. My son chimed in from the side. Yeah, Grandma, Dad's really gone. The police said it was suicide. By the time we saw him, he was gone. Oh, my son. My mother-in-law gasped for air and nearly fainted again. I quickly patted her on the back and gave her a few sips of water to calm her down. She covered her face with her handkerchief and sobbed for a few minutes before suddenly snapping back to reality. No. My son wouldn't just kill himself for no reason. Something must have happened. I have to ask the police. She yanked the needle out of her arm and ran out of the room, barely putting her shoes on. Luckily, the police hadn't left the hospital yet, and she ran right into them at the entrance. Sarah was with the police. When she saw the three of us, a vicious glint flashed in her eyes. My mother-in-law didn't know Sarah yet. She paid no attention to the people around her, and just grabbed the officer's uniform, demanding to know what had happened to Leo. Before the officer could speak, it was Sarah who spoke first. You must be Leo's mother, right? After my mother-in-law confirmed, Sarah suddenly dropped to her knees with a thud. I'm so sorry. Leo's death is all my fault. What? At her words, my mother-in-law's attention immediately shifted to her. What is your relationship with my son? Did you have something to do with his death? If the police hadn't been right there, my mother-in-law would have lunged at her. We're just regular colleagues. Leo was a great guy, always looking out for us. What happened to him, it's because I couldn't talk him out of it. Take all your anger out on me. Please don't blame your daughter-in-law. Hearing her turn the conversation to me, I was baffled. But I quickly realized what was happening. She was redirecting the blame again, trying to make me take the fall for Leo's death. I started to wonder if I'd ever done something to hurt her. Why was it that no matter the lifetime, she was always determined to sling mud my way? Hearing this, my mother-in-law shot me a disbelieving, furious glare, then turned back to Sarah and told her to explain everything. Sarah remained on her knees, wiping a tear-streaked face. To be honest with you, Leo came to me before he died. He said his wife saw him giving me a ride home and suspected we were having an affair. She secretly reported him to the board for misconduct. Our company is in the middle of a management shuffle right now. The new leadership didn't know the whole story, and when they heard what Leo's wife said, they just dismissed him and kicked him out of the company. Leo had nowhere to turn. He talked to me for a long time. I thought he would eventually let it go and start a new life, but I never imagined he'd take it so hard and jump into the river. It's all my fault. If only I'd realized sooner, if I had just said a few more words. It's all my fault. 4. Her words sent my mother-in-law into a rage. She whirled around and screamed at me. Chloe, what has our family ever done to you? Why on earth would you report Leo? She raised her hand and slapped me across the face, so hard that it sent me sprawling to the ground. I fell right next to Sarah, and as I looked up, I saw the faint curl of a smile on her lips. Then she pulled a letter out of her pocket and handed it to my mother-in-law. This was found among Leo's belongings. I was going to wait to give it to you, but you're his mother. You have the right to know the truth. Leo wrote down everything that happened right here. You'll understand once you read it. As my mother-in-law read the letter, a crowd started to gather around us. We were right at the hospital entrance, and Sarah's dramatic sobbing had caught a lot of attention. Even though the police tried to disperse them, wave after wave of onlookers kept coming. Piece by piece, they started to understand what was happening and jumped in to condemn me. What man doesn't cheat these days? And this was nothing. Even if something did happen, a wife can't just report her husband. Exactly. They say you don't air your dirty laundry in public. But her? She didn't even ask, just went straight to his company. This kind of person is a jinx, causes trouble wherever she goes. Now that she has driven her husband to suicide, let us see what she does. What will she do? Look at her, not a single trace of sadness on her face. She is probably thrilled. If she had even a shred of a conscience, could she have done something like this? The murmurs from the crowd grew louder. My mother-in-law's face grew darker and darker as she continued to read the letter. Finally, she clenched the envelope in her fist and shot me a look filled with hatred. Chloe, you curse. I must be cursed to have a daughter-in-law like you. I'll kill you. With that, she grabbed a brick that someone had left in a corner, and without a second thought, threw it straight at me. Hey, Mom, you can't do that. A police officer rushed over to block the blow. All right. If you have a problem, don't argue here. You're blocking the whole entrance. Other patients can't get through. The officer started pulling us away from the hospital entrance. He had only taken a few steps before an urgent call pulled him away, leaving us standing there. More than half of the crowd that had been watching the show at the entrance refused to leave. Most of them were family members visiting patients, but at that moment, their sick relatives were no longer their priority. The drama was, we had only moved a few steps to the side before we were completely surrounded, unable to move. I clutched my red, swollen cheek where my mother-in-law had hit me. I was about to say something when a sharp pain shot through my back, and I fell to the ground again. I turned my head to see that the one who had kicked me was my son, Jason. His eyes were filled with tears. He had clearly seen the contents of Leo's letter. Mom, what are you trying to do? Our family was fine. Why did you report Dad? All he did was give a female colleague a ride home. Why did you have to drive him to his death? I let out a cold laugh. A ride home? I think it was a little more than just a ride home, don't you? You damn bitch. Yes, already dead, and you're still saying this. I think you've lost your mind. Hearing me speak, my mother-in-law pushed Jason aside, stepped on my foot, and ground her heel into it. You took my son's life. So I won't let you live either. Pain shot through my foot, but I bit my lip and managed not to scream. Yanking my foot back, I looked around at the circle of people glaring at me, and suddenly realized I was caught in a bizarre trap, where I had to prove my own innocence. Somehow, my mother-in-law and son were already convinced that I was the one who had reported Leo, and they were determined to make me pay for it. Right now, the most important thing was to clear up the truth about Leo's death. I quickly composed myself and asked in the calmest voice I could manage. Sarah, you said I drove my husband to his death. May I ask, when did your company's leadership receive the tip? How would I know? A flash of panic crossed Sarah's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. It was either yesterday or this morning. Leo was fine the day before yesterday, but he killed himself right after talking to me today. Something must have happened in between. Yesterday? This morning. I repeated her words, my gaze shifting to my mother-in-law and son. When they heard the time frame, they both flinched, their faces changing color. How is that possible? 5. Before they could say another word, I let out a cold laugh and turned my attention back to Sarah. Sarah, you talk as if you personally saw me report my husband. And as for my husband confiding in you, that's just your side of the story. What proof do you have? My question clearly caught her off guard. She choked for a second, then immediately burst into tears. Chloe, what kind of proof do you want from me? Leo is dead, and as his colleague, I'm incredibly sad. I just wanted to tell his mother and son the truth out of sympathy, so they wouldn't be left in the dark. Leo's suicide note is in your hands, and you still want me to provide proof? That's ridiculous. I can't believe I was just trying to do something nice, and it turned out to be a mistake. Sarah cried pitifully, as if she had suffered some great injustice. If I didn't know the truth, I might have even been fooled by her act. I was about to question her further when the crowd couldn't take it anymore. Your name is Chloe, right? A middle-aged woman pointed her finger in my face and started yelling. Do you have any conscience at all? You killed your own husband, and instead of feeling any remorse, you're being this aggressive. If the police hadn't been here earlier, I would have come over and given you a beating myself. You shameless piece of trash. I'd love to see your parents. What kind of degenerates could raise a daughter like you? The words spewing from her mouth were vile, but no one in the crowd spoke up for me. They all seemed to agree with her. Yes. Well said. I couldn't stand it either. People like her should be struck by lightning. Exactly. Her colleague was just trying to help, but instead of admitting she's wrong, she's trying to cause more trouble for her. Right. This woman has no heart. I got here early, and I saw everything. It was this female colleague who was running around with the police, helping with everything. Before the family even arrived, she was the one who paid for the medical bills. And this woman, his so-called wife, her conscience must have been eaten by a dog. Seeing the crowd closing in, I pulled out the small knife I had brought for self-defense and waved it in my hand. All of you stay back. This is our family's business. It has nothing to do with you. My aggressive stance startled the crowd, and they took a couple of steps back, but they continued to mutter insults under their breath. Once it was a little quieter, I turned back to Sarah. Miss Sarah, you said it happened yesterday or this morning. I was asleep that entire time. How could I have reported my husband? Hearing this, Sarah laughed without a second thought. Chloe, you'll really stop at nothing to cause trouble for me, won't you? You say you were sleeping, but who has to say you were? Besides, how can a person sleep for that long? Fine. I'll admit I spoke out of turn today, telling Leo's mother and son about this. But I don't regret it. I just did what I thought was right. With that, Sarah turned to leave, but I staggered to my feet and quickly blocked her path. My word alone might not be enough, but my mother-in-law and son can vouch for me. You saw how furious they were with me just now. They would never side with me over something that isn't true. If you don't believe me, ask them. As I finished speaking, a hush fell over the crowd. Sensing a possible turn of events, everyone looked at my mother-in-law and son with questioning eyes. Being the center of so many people's attention, my mother-in-law seemed a little nervous. She exchanged a glance with my son, then nodded along with my words. Chloe's right. She's been sleeping at home for the past 2 days. She hasn't swept the floor, washed the dishes, or even gone to the bathroom. Someone in the crowd voiced their doubt. Ma'am, how can you know for sure? You weren't watching your daughter-in-law 24/7. Maybe she made the call when you weren't looking. The speaker was the same self-righteous middle-aged woman who had been cursing me out earlier. She was clearly enjoying the drama and wanted to see us fight. Ma'am, if you don't know what you're talking about, maybe you should stay out of it. I shot back at the woman before turning my attention back to the matter at hand. Because the day before yesterday, I accidentally took too many sleeping pills and slept for 2 full days. My mother-in-law and son were home the whole time. How could they not know? 6. My words were met with another wave of silence. The crowd's gazes were now filled with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. Sarah's face paled slightly. Her eyes darted around, and in an instant, she had come up with a new story. Who knows if those sleeping pills you took were expired or not? If you ask me, this was probably all part of your plan. You pretended to overdose on pills just to make your mother-in-law and son let their guard down, so you could find a chance to kill your husband. Poor Leo. How could such a good man end up with such a calculating wife? Then she turned to my mother-in-law. Don't you think that makes sense, ma'am? You weren't with Chloe 24/7. Maybe she just pretended to be asleep in front of you. And as soon as you were resting, she snuck out to call his boss and report him. People like her will stop at nothing to get what they want. Sarah's words successfully planted a seed of doubt in the minds of my mother-in-law and son. It was true they hadn't been watching me around the clock. While I was asleep, my mother-in-law had to go shopping, cook and clean, while my son stayed in his room and rarely came out. The only times my mother-in-law had checked on me were when she needed me to do something. She'd come to my bedroom, see that I was asleep and couldn't be woken, and then leave. She definitely wasn't watching me every single moment. Seeing that she had achieved her desired effect, Sarah grew more and more smug. If you ask me, Chloe planned to report Leo all along. The sleeping pills were just part of her scheme. Otherwise, why would she take them on the exact 2 days Leo happened to get in trouble? I really feel for Leo. To think that the person sleeping beside him every night was the one who would hurt him the most. And ma'am, I feel for you too. To raise a son for so many years, for him to be so successful, only to be murdered by his own wife one day. Where's the justice in that? Sarah took a step closer and gently patted my mother-in-law's hand. But don't be too sad. Your own health is the most important thing. The priority now is to punish this murderer. You can't let the person who killed your son get away with it. Spurred on by Sarah's words, the hatred in my mother-in-law's eyes returned. Her body trembled as she raised her hand and pointed at me. Chloe, I never would have thought you were such a calculating person. Now I see why you were acting so strange, saying the house was haunted and asking me for sleeping pills. It was all so I could be your alibi. Have you no conscience, Chloe? You killed my son, and you want me, his own mother, to be your witness. How venomous can you be? She then pointed at Sarah. If it weren't for my son's colleague helping me see the light, I would have been completely fooled by you. Jason, come here. Help me grab your mother's arms. Today, I'm going to get revenge for your father. 7. Stop. A powerful shout came from behind us. 2 police officers pushed their way through the crowd. One of them was the officer from the hospital entrance who had blocked the brick for me. It seemed he had just finished dealing with his emergency and returned. Why are so many people gathered here? Disperse immediately. One officer started clearing the crowd while the other looked at us. Why are you all still arguing here? After you've identified the body, come with me to the station. We'll handle the rest there. Wait. Officer, you have to help me. My mother-in-law suddenly dropped to her knees with a thud. You heard everything before you left. It was my daughter-in-law who killed my son. She reported him to his boss for cheating, which got him fired and drove him to suicide. You have to sentence her to death. Ma'am, please get up first. It's not up to me to decide the death penalty. We have to follow the law. No. I want to get up until you agree. My mother-in-law was digging in her heels, refusing to budge. The crowd that had started to disperse saw her making a scene and gathered around again, siding with her. Yes, the old lady is right. It's all her daughter-in-law's fault. And according to her son's colleague, this daughter-in-law, in order to escape responsibility, lied about taking sleeping pills and sleeping for 2 days. She even tried to get the victim's own mother to be her alibi. Can you believe how cruel this woman is? Exactly. Officer, you have to arrest this woman and punish her severely. If people like her are allowed to walk free, who knows who the next victim will be? This statement was met with a chorus of agreement from the crowd. Sarah stood just a few feet away. Seeing the focus of the discussion shift back to me, she let out a sigh of relief, a cunning glint in her eyes. I understood what she was thinking. She was so desperate to pin the blame on me because she was afraid that if the police investigated, she would be implicated and her reputation would be ruined. While she might not have committed a crime in the legal sense, her main goal was to get a promotion and take over Leo's position. If her reputation was tarnished and she was labeled as someone who drove a person to their death, she could forget about a promotion. The company would never keep her. Her future in the entire industry would be over. But no matter the reason, I couldn't stand the way she trampled on human life just to get ahead. It wasn't about avenging anyone. Leo was a scumbag who deserved to die. Sarah was a bitch who didn't deserve a happy ending. With that thought, I shouted to get everyone's attention. I didn't get a chance to say this earlier, but since the police are here now, I'll show you the proof that I was indeed at home sleeping the whole time. I took out my phone, pulled up the video file, and handed it to the officer. Please take a look. As the officer watched, I explained to everyone present. I don't know if it's just me, but for the past few days, the atmosphere at home has felt off. I always feel like someone is watching me when I sleep, like the place is haunted. Because of that, I haven't had a good night's sleep in days. That's why I asked my mother-in-law for sleeping pills. I just wanted to sleep soundly. But I was afraid something might happen while I was asleep, so I set up my phone to record myself the entire time. I thought I would just sleep for one night, but I had no idea I would be out for so long. Luckily, I had plugged my phone into charge before I fell asleep, otherwise I wouldn't have this complete video evidence. Without this recording, I would never been able to talk my way out of this today. 8. My words left everyone stunned. A few people standing close by craned their necks to watch the video over the officer's shoulder. Perhaps because the situation had escalated so much, the two officers didn't rush us to the station. They watched the entire video on fast forward. After finishing, the officer looked up and said, "The video confirms what you said. You were indeed asleep for 2 full days. You were sleeping during the time of Leo's death, so you couldn't have made the report." He then turned to my mother-in-law. "Ma'am, there seems to be some misunderstanding here. How about we all head down to the station?" But at that moment Sarah shouted, "No, officer. You must have seen it wrong. How could she possibly sleep for 2 days straight? That video has to be edited. She did it on purpose." Her shout drew everyone's attention back to her. Even the slowest person in the crowd could sense that something was off. I was just about to say, "Why are you, as a colleague, so invested in this? No matter who did it or who gets punished, it shouldn't have anything to do with you, right? Why are you so eager to get involved?" The speaker was that same middle-aged woman. She still had that look of someone enjoying a good show, but her stance had shifted. She was now suspicious of Sarah's true motives. "I just feel so sorry for Leo and want to stand up for him. We worked together at the company for 8 years. What's wrong with me saying a few words on his behalf?" 8 years? That doesn't sound right, does it? The middle-aged woman's suspicion deepened. Sarah ignored her and continued to argue. "What's not right about it? I remember it clearly. 8 years and 6 months. Even a dog becomes family after 8 years. I worked with Leo for so long. What's the problem with me speaking up for him?" "The problem is huge." Another, older woman stepped forward. "No normal person remembers exactly how long they've worked with a colleague. People come and go from companies all the time. Unless you were especially close, how could you remember the exact length of time you worked together? I've had my eye on you from the beginning. This is their family's business, but you're on the sidelines fanning the flames, as if it has everything to do with you. Regardless of whether the wife reported him or not, your relationship with that Leo guy probably wasn't so simple, was it?" The woman had hit a nerve. Sarah's face flushed red. Don't you dare make baseless accusations. My relationship with Leo was purely professional, as a subordinate and a supervisor. Everyone in our company can vouch for me." She stuck her neck out. Since there was no one around who knew her, she could lie all she wanted without being exposed. Just then, a woman's voice cut through the crowd. "Are you Sarah? What are you doing here?" Seeing the newcomer, Sarah's face went white. I recognized this person too. She was another one of my husband's subordinates. Her name was Jenna, I think. After Jenna got the gist of what was happening, she was the first to refute Sarah's claims. She then added something else. "Well, since Leo is already gone, I don't need to keep this secret anymore. I didn't say anything before because I didn't want to disturb his family's peace, but now I have to get it off my chest." Jenna took a deep breath and spoke loudly. "Leo was having an affair with Sarah. I even caught them fooling around in the company break room once." 9. Her words sent shockwaves through the crowd. Everyone stared at Jenna in disbelief. Then their expressions shifted to ones of dawning realization. "No wonder. I was wondering why this woman was so eager to help. Turns out she was standing up for her old lover." "Standing up for him? Didn't you hear what the officer said? His wife was sound asleep for 2 days. She didn't have time to report her husband. Who knows what really happened here?" "Hey, now that you mention it, I'm getting chills. The wife didn't report him, but the mistress is making such a big deal out of it. Could there be something more to this?" As the crowd buzzed with speculation, Jenna kept talking. "And there's one more thing I need to make clear. As far as I know, Sarah's position is right below Leo's. If anything happened to Leo, Sarah would be the biggest beneficiary. In her current job, she makes maybe 100 grand a year. But as a manager, she could be making several $100,000. Jenna, don't you dare make things up." Sarah exploded. "I'll sue you for slander." "Sarah, other people might be afraid of you, but I'm not." Jenna looked completely unfazed. "You bitch. I know all your little tricks. You used the same method to climb the ladder by seducing my husband. He didn't die, he just got fired. And then you took my husband's spot under Leo. I'm not wrong, am I? That just means your husband is a lecherous weakling. What does that have to do with today? Jenna didn't argue with her. She turned to us and said, Chloe and Leo's mother, please don't be fooled by this bitch. She is full of tricks. With today's technology, it's not hard to find out who owns a phone number, is it? I have a friend who does this kind of work. I'll have him help us right now. Ignoring Sarah's protests, she stepped away to make a call. Less than a minute later, a message came through. She glanced at it, then held up her phone screen for everyone to see with a cold smile. Everyone, take a good look. The person who made the anonymous call to the company was Sarah herself. She has been framing Leo's wife this whole time to muddy the waters and keep her own hands clean. 10. The people who crowded around to see the screen felt a collective chill run down their spines. Now they understood just how vicious and vile Sarah's actions were. This time, everyone was completely on my side. Stared down by so many angry faces, Sarah, now at the center of the storm, couldn't hold it together anymore. Her eyes darted left and right, as if searching for an escape route. Fearing things would get out of hand, the two police officers were about to intervene when I heard my mother-in-law whisper something to my son. Before anyone could react, my son lunged forward and grabbed Sarah's arm. He used so much force that we heard a sickening crack. Before Sarah could even scream, my mother-in-law pulled out a knife and plunged it into her stomach. A gush of blood sprayed out. Sarah only let out a muffled groan before collapsing. As if that wasn't enough, my son followed his grandmother, pulled the knife out, and stabbed Sarah several more times. By the time the crowd managed to pull them apart, Sarah was no longer breathing. The two police officers quickly called for nearby medical staff to take Sarah to the emergency room, then handcuffed my mother-in-law and son. Even in handcuffs, my mother-in-law didn't stop cursing. She railed against Sarah's actions, screaming that she had destroyed her only hope, and that even if Sarah hadn't died, she would have found a way to kill her eventually. The onlookers all wore expressions of pity. After all, her son was still young, just out of college. Now, with blood on his hands, his future was likely ruined. Listening to their murmurs, I stood hidden behind the crowd and smiled to myself. Although I hadn't been able to give them their comeuppance in my own way, their current fate was more than satisfying. What goes around comes around. An eye for an eye. It's not that karma doesn't exist sometimes, it just takes its time.